Hey grade sevens, welcome to your Monday math lesson. So right off the bat, we're just going to do our little bit of a review like we normally do. And then we are going to go into word problems involving fractions. That's what I want to spend a little bit of time on just because you'll see problems like this, they're more applicable to everyday life and real world problems because you'll see fractions being used in your life many times. Especially if you guys ever even do anything like renovating a house, or if you go to Rona, you'll see uh, that even planks of wood are measured in fractions. So that's kind of what I want to spend a little bit of time on, especially and other things like baking and everything. So we're going to do our review. Off the bat, also, I want to thank you guys all for the amazing questions you've been asking and the time you've been putting into your work and everything. It really shows. I know it's a super, super stressful time. And I want to remind you guys that if you are stressed out and you're having a hard time doing your work, or if you're really rushing to finish your work by the deadline, let me know, email me, because I am able to give extensions and I'm more happy to because this is a stressful time for all of us and I definitely want to support you guys as much as possible. You shouldn't have to be completely over the top stressed out for worrying about handing in your math a day or two late. So let me know. I'm here for you guys. This is my focus, is for your learning, but also, I'm another support system. I'm another support system for you guys during this time. So with that, let's get into it. So we're gonna do our review. So we did multiplying mixed fractions and dividing mixed fractions. So let's do multiplication. So first of all, with multiplying mixed fractions, I have to put them into improper form. Easiest way to do it is take my whole number, multiply by my denominator, and add my numerator. So 3 times 4 plus 1, so 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13, and my denominator stays the same as 4. I do my next fraction, which is 1 times 8, which is 8, plus 1 equals 9 over 8. Now I just multiply across, and I multiply across the bottom. So 13 times 9 equals 117. And 4 times 8 is 32. Next part is with this improper fraction, I need to put it into proper form. So I count how many times can I fit 32 into 117. I know it can fit in at least once. I know it can fit in twice because that'll give me 64. 64 plus 32 gives me 96, so I know it can fit in 3 times. And it can't fit in a fourth time because the next one is 128. So I know it can fit in 3 whole times. What's left over is 32 times 3 gives me 96. So I take 117 minus 96, and that will give me whatever is left over. That gives me 21. So I have 3 and 21 over 32. I see if I can make this number smaller. In this case, I will not be able to. So that's my final answer. Now for division, it's that same similar process, except you just switch things up on the last step. So first of all, putting into improper fractions, 5 times 3, which is 15, plus 2 is 17 over 3, divided by 7 times 6 equals 42, plus 1 is 43 over 6. Now, to do this, I take 17 over 3 and leave that the same. I switch my top and bottom numbers. So I do times 6 over 43. 17 times 6 gives me 102. And 43 times 3 gives me 129. This is already in a proper form. I just see if I can make this fraction any smaller. I don't think I can. Let me double check. Oh, I can divide both of these by 3. So 102 divided by 3. So remember, if you are trying to find fractions that can fit in, first of all, look if they're both even numbers. You'll know you'll be able to divide by 2. These are not both even numbers. So I look at 3. Can I divide both of them by 3? I quickly punch them into a calculator. If neither of them are decimals, I know I'm good. So 102 divided by 3 gives me 34. And 129 divided by 3 gives me 43. And I'm going to double check if I can't make it any smaller. I don't think I can. Nope. So that's my final fraction, is 34 over 43. So that's our review. Next one, we're going to go into our word problems. So I have word problems on a separate sheet. So here is the sheet. So number 1 is, go away. All right. Ellen planned to interview some applicants for a position in her office. If she scheduled a quarter of an hour to meet each of them, how many times did she schedule for all 6 applicants? So here are the numbers that I need, is 1/4 and 6. So bring those numbers over here, 1/4 and 6. So she needed a quarter of an hour to schedule for 6 applicants. So how much time did she need in total? If every single applicant needed the same amount of time, I could just multiply this problem. Because otherwise I could do 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 6 times, but that's just the same thing as doing 1/4 times 6, because all it is repeated addition. So that's how I know I can do it by 6, because every single applicant needs that same amount of time, and there's 6 of them all together. So 1/4 times 6, how do I do a fraction times a whole number? Well, I put my fraction stays the same, but I put my whole number over 1. And then I multiply across like normal. So 1 times 6 equals 6. 4 times 1 equals 4. How many times, it's an improper fraction, so how many times can 4 fit into 6? It can fit in once. What is left over? 6 minus 4 equals 2. So I have 2 left over, so that is 2/4. Can I make this fraction smaller? Yes, because I can divide both of these numbers by 2. So that gives me 1 and 1/2. So she will need 1 hour plus 1/2 hour to interview all the applicants. So if I was going to put into a word answer, she would need sorry, my cursive is really bad on this thing. One hour and what's half an hour, or it's half of an hour, is 30 minutes to complete her interview. All right, so let's do another problem. No, stop doing that. Sorry, the pen I used to write on this thing has buttons on the side of it. The problem is I keep on accidentally hitting them whenever I write. All right, so that's our first word problem. Let's do another one. Instead of a quarter of an hour, Alan spent, so we're looking at number 2, instead of a quarter of an hour, Alan spent a third of an hour to meet each applicant. How much more time did she spend meeting all the applicants? So the first part of this question is she needed a third of an hour, but there were still 6 applicants. So it'd be the same process as I did last time. So our answer from last time was 1 and 1/2. So I'm just going to put this to the side because we're going to need it later. So she needed a third of an hour instead of a quarter. So I take 1/3 and I do the same thing. I times it by 6. So I put it over, so I put 6 over 1, and now I put it into 1 times 6 equals 6, 3 times 1 equals 3. How I can make this to a proper fraction as I take 3. How many times does 3 fit into 6? Twice. Is there any left over? Nope, so it's just 2 wholes. So that's the first part of this question. The next part is, how much more time did she spend meeting all the applicants? So how much more time? The next part of this question is subtraction, because she needed 2 hours in actuality, but she only scheduled an hour and a half. So how much more time did she need? Is I take 2 hours and minus an hour and 1/2. This kind of subtraction is really easy because what is 2 wholes minus 1 whole? 1 whole. Is there anything here? Nope. So I just bring this 1/2 over. And that's that. However, does that look right? Not quite. So where did I go wrong? Because I did 2 and nothing minus 1 and 1/2. What I did is I did 2 minus 1, which gave me 1, and what gets left, what I was left with is 1/2. However, 2 hours versus an hour and 30 minutes does not leave me with an hour and a half. Doesn't work. So where did I go wrong? I did the process right, but does the answer seem right? No. Because if I did 2 minus, if I were to put these into decimals, for example, if I did 2 minus 1.5, because 0.5 is the same as 1/2, that would give me 0.5. So in this case, you have to really judge the way the question looks. Because if I just do it the normal way, it doesn't give me the right answer. So in this case, I am left with an hour and a half. Another way you could have done this is put these fractions into improper form. So I already had this with my answer here, as I did 6 over 3. So I'm just going to put these over here, 6 over 3 minus 1 and 1/2 in improper form is 1 times 2 plus 1 is 3, and over 2. However, I can't leave it like this because I can't just do it like this, I have to have the same denominator. So what can I do to make these proper is 2 and 3, I can just multiply them by each other, and whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top as well. So now I'm left with 12 over 6 minus 9 over 6. 12 minus 9 equals 3 over 6. 3 over 6. If I reduce that, or if I simplify it, I can divide both of these by 3, which gives me 1/2. Huh, that seems right. So in this case, you have to judge your answers. Because if I were to reverse this problem that I did here, 2 minus 1/2, 1 1/2, if I did 1/2 plus 1/2, it would not equal 2. It would equal 3, or 3 wholes. So in this case, you have to kind of judge your answers, and by the way they look. The word problems you have are going to be fairly easy, so you should be able to judge visually and look at your answers to be able to tell whether they seem right or not. Usually try 2 ways. If you try putting them into mixed form and it doesn't seem right, try in proper form, and vice versa if your answers just seem a little bit off. So in this case, by putting them into improper form, it gave me the right answer. And that's that. So that's word problems with fractions. You're going to have a worksheet that has a few different word problems on it. They're all going to pertain to things like baking or having things broken down to fractions like this. It'll be due Wednesday by 10 p.m. As always, if you have any questions, let me know. You guys have seen that I'm usually pretty good. Also, if you guys are stressed out and you really need to take an extra day or something, there's no shame in asking for it. Email me, let me know, and I'll extend it for you. The only thing is, just keep in mind that extension after extension, eventually you will kind of fall behind. And when you have 3 lessons or 4 lessons going on that you haven't been able to finish, I don't want to stress you out even more by giving you so many extensions that you have lesson after lesson to complete. So take caution. If you can complete it, no problem. Fantastic. If not, let me know and I'll work with you to find a situation that works best for you. Okay? It's a stressful time for everybody, so I want to make sure that you guys are doing well. So thank you guys so much for the amazing work you've been doing, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday.